Today we're talking about the 5 reasons why meeting an INFJ will destroy your ego. Meeting an INFJ can be a very intense experience if the INFJ allows it. In most cases, INFJs are not really bringing their A game. They're trying to be nice, they're trying to be kind, they're really playing the game because they want to create harmony. But if you're really at a point where you meet an INFJ, like you really get to know an INFJ, it really has a huge impact on the other person. It will break their ego one way or another. And today we're going to look into how that looks like. Is that really a bad thing? Is this something that we should be ashamed of? Is this something we should embrace? Well, today we're going to answer that question. Before we get started though, I want to remind you the next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp is just around the corner. We launch this Saturday, November 4th. So make sure to sign up for the waiting list to get access to the early bird price and set a reminder to watch the free INFJ Epic Life Masterclass here on YouTube, November 4th. Everything you need to know you can find in the links in the description. Reason number 1 why meeting an INFJ will destroy your ego is the INFJ is real. Like a lot of people, if you get to know them, they cannot be real. Like it's not this typical thing of, oh, I'm just real and everybody says it. But what does that mean? It means that you're being as authentically you as you can possibly be. And an INFJ being authentic and an INFJ being real means the INFJ is going deep. The INFJ is going back to the roots. The INFJ is really talking to you like there's nothing to lose, all ego aside, because the truth is we as INFJs are just really connected to our subconscious. We see the ego game, we know when people are playing it, but it's not something that we carry with ourselves all the time and that we cannot let go of. Like most people really cannot do that. A lot of INFJs actually struggle with this because we feel everybody can just put their ego aside. And so we wonder why the other person isn't willing to do that. Like I'm coming to you really authentically, I want to talk about the truth about what we're experiencing here. Why have a facade? Why have an ego? Well, most people just are not able to really let go of that because it's part of their identity. And the moment they actually let go of their ego, they would be too vulnerable. All of this happens on a subconscious level. And once an INFJ understands that it's not really people's choice why they can't let go of their ego, a lot of those problems and challenges when meeting somebody else actually go away because the INFJ has some understanding that they didn't have before. Remember, we all see the world the way we are, right? We see it through our lens. So if it's supernatural for us to be able to let go of our ego and talk to somebody like face to face, like share our true feelings, we automatically assume it's easy like this for everybody else. With time, we learn it's not that way. And so therefore, things will get a lot easier. But the thing is this, if an INFJ really talks to you, they're going to be real. And this will always have an effect on the other person because even if the other person doesn't want to let go of their ego and the INFJ doesn't have the insight to say, okay, apparently that person doesn't want to be provoked and I'm going to leave it at that, it's not really worth my time. The INFJ first will try to talk to them, on the real level. INFJs are real. And when you start talking to people in a way of I'm real, I see what's going on underneath that ego, people will get triggered. Because they cannot let go of this ego thing. Like this is not something people will let go of voluntarily because there's so much pain involved. And remember, it's not a choice. It's really something that you feel you have to hold on to, otherwise you'll die, at least psychologically speaking. But just because people don't want to let go of it doesn't mean that they're not going to be forced to let go of it. So if you meet an INFJ and an INFJ really wants to know you and really wants to talk to you, they will have that conversation with you. It's another question of if we should do this or not. As I mentioned before, if an INFJ finally knows what's really going on, we're going to make different decisions. But when you come from a perspective of, I'm just being me, like why do I have to pretend anything? It's totally normal for the other person to just let go of their ego. I'm the reason that they're not doing it. I'm not being kind enough. I'm not being forgiving enough. I don't have enough empathy for them. That's not the case. But if you meet somebody as an INFJ and you decide, I'm going to be real with you, it will break another person's ego because they see that in front of you, they cannot hide. They're forced to look at you as an INFJ, and you as an INFJ are that mirror for them, and they see those parts of themselves that are really them, but they keep them under wraps, they keep them hidden because it's too painful. Well, once you see it, you can't run away from it. That's why there are so many confrontations with INFJs, so many intense encounters, because the INFJ is really mirroring back This is who you really are. This is what I see. You can't hide from it, and now deal with it. Reason number 2 why meeting an INFJ will break your ego is because the INFJ can play the ego game better than most. So hear me out on this. So most INFJs, if they haven't really experienced this, we always go at it from this naive perspective of, I'm trying to be honest with you, please be honest with me. So when the other person continuously doesn't want to engage in that, so they come back at you and they play their ego game. They really want to put you down because that's the only way for them to feel good. At some moment, the INFJ recognizes, okay, I cannot keep doing this. This person isn't going to get it. I cannot keep trying to be kind, be as authentic as I possibly can, be vulnerable over and over again because the other person just uses that. There is no understanding here. So when the INFJ has gotten to the point where they recognize, okay, I cannot do this. I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to be honest. And yeah, this will trigger the other person. It sort of breaks down their ego, but not completely. Like they're still trying to fight back. And I'm not doing anything on purpose to hurt that person. Then the INFJ really has no other choice but to actually start playing that ego game. Because that's the only way the other person is going to get it. And what are they supposed to get? They're supposed to get to leave you alone. How often have we been in situations with people where we had this interaction and then we think, well, just leave me alone. Like I'm dimming my light. I'm not being in your way. Why don't you just let me be and let me do my thing? Why do you keep nagging me? Like there is something that you want from me, so let's figure this out. Like if that's not the case, then let me go. Well, people cannot let you go because you're bugging them. There's something about your presence that irritates them because it reminds them of there's something going on here. I need to figure this out. And I have some anger around this because I'm trying to protect myself and you're the person I'm going to direct it to. Well, at one point, the INFJ really has to step up for themselves. And they say, okay, if the other person is only willing to play the ego game, then let's play that ego game because that's the only way that person is going to leave me alone. And what people don't understand is that if INFJs are able to let go of all of that ego, it is because we're so good at it, because we can see that it's just a game. And there's nobody more powerful at that ego game than the one who knows it's a game, right? So the moment the INFJ really decides, okay, I have no other choice. And trust me, this is not something we want because we don't want to cause that much pain for the other person. We don't want to be the person who's responsible for all this. It doesn't feel good to us, but if we have to, we will. And then we'll play the game that they're trying to play just better. So we know what they're trying to hide. We know what their insecurities are that they're trying to mask. And well, we see that. And so we play into that. We can play that ego game. And once an INFJ really decides, I'm going to play that ego game because I have no other choice, that person doesn't leave me alone. You want to pretend like you don't care? See how I don't care. See how I can put up this facade. And I know it's a game, but it doesn't really matter. Maybe that will be a way for them to leave me alone, to understand I'm not somebody to be messed with. The latest at this moment is when that person's ego breaks. So many INFJs are afraid of that step because of that, because they know this is what's going to happen and they don't want to be responsible for this kind of pain. But what you have to remember is you have no other choice. In a world where somebody keeps biting you, where somebody keeps barking at you, you really have to bite back. There is no other way, because if you as an INFJ keep turning the other cheek, at the end, you will have nothing left. You won't have any energy left. You will have, a mental breakdown, no matter what it could be. Like it has gotten so many INFJs into such depressive states, and I've been there myself as well, and I know well enough now I'm going to protect myself. Like I'm not going to allow somebody's inner pain to be projected on me because they cannot handle it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm playing that game in that moment for them to realize I'm not somebody to be messed with. And once an INFJ does that, it's game over. The other person really recognizes, okay, with my ego game, I still cannot win. I still cannot pretend that I can beat the other person, that the other person doesn't know my weakness, because that's the only thing the INFJ does. The INFJ shows that person, I know that you have an insecurity about this. I'm not even thinking that you have it, but okay, let me be the mirror for that. And then the other person has to recognize that they cannot get their self-worth out of the reaction of other people. That's the moment they have to start looking inward and understand I cannot get that validation that I want from the outside. I need to give it to myself. I need to find worthiness in who I truly am. that is the moment when an ego really breaks down. Reason number 3 why meeting an INFJ will break your ego is because the INFJ will step up if they need to. So many times the INFJ dims their light. We do this because we don't want to offend somebody. We do this because we know what's going on within them. We have empathy for them. And so there are certain strengths about us that we sort of keep hidden. Because if we feel like I'm going to put myself in a center, I'm going to make sure that my light shines, guess what? It will make others feel bad. But of course, if you followed my material, you know that this is only something that you can play for so long. It just isn't real. This dimmed part of you just isn't you. And once an INFJ understands that, once they understand that it's not their responsibility how somebody else feels about themselves, that every single person has to find that within them, that they cannot go through life and say, okay, because that INFJ is making themselves small, I feel good about myself. Well, they're going to meet a lot of other people. And, in the end, you cannot stop breathing to make life more comfortable for other people, because that's what we're doing when we're keeping our energy small, when we're not shining. And so the moment the INFJ recognizes, like I cannot do this anymore because the other person keeps on taking from me, I have to actually get my light back. That's the moment when a lot of people have like that ego break, because they see, oh, the INFJ is actually much better at so many things than I am. And they haven't recognized this so far because the INFJ has played them down. See, most people, when they meet somebody and they have some qualities about them that is something that they want, but they cannot handle, subconsciously they pull away. Like those people never become friends, they never become real acquaintances. Like there's just a psychological distance. And every single person does this to protect their ego to some level. But when you meet an INFJ who has continuously pretended to be less than what they are because the INFJ wrongfully thought, oh, I'm going to protect them, I'm doing this for them. Like all of those thoughts that INFJs have that are very understandable. I've had them, I've acted them out for years and decades. Like there's no shame in that. But you get to a realization that at some point you cannot hide this anymore. And that's when you have that ego break, because that person has gotten close to you. They've gotten close to you psychologically because they feel safe around you. And they feel safe because they feel you're not a threat. But in the end, you are a threat. You are a threat because there's something about you. There is some energy that they cannot handle. If they could have handled it, you wouldn't have even dimmed that light, right? We do this because we see that we would potentially be a threat to their ego. But so once that person has gotten to you closer psychologically, and then your true self shines, that's when you break egos, because there's a small psychological distance there. And once you really bring that light out while this is happening, it really breaks an ego, because they understand, oh, I'm really not what I thought I was. So now I have to deal with the fact that I personally have self-doubts about myself in those certain areas. They're being mirrored back to me because that person is shining, and I see that I don't think I'm good enough in this. Of course, in the end, it doesn't matter. It doesn't define you. It doesn't make you more or less of a valuable person. But at that moment, that's what that person feels. And you know how I always say, we have to feel things in order to heal them. So in the end, yes, it's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's not your responsibility to make yourself small in order to prevent other people from facing their own insecurities. That's all what they are. They're insecurities that are not real. They don't make up who that person is. And people have to face their own insecurities in order to be able to overcome them. With time, INFJs learn that we don't want this big of a chaos. We don't want this big of a drama, so we don't even let it get to this part. We learn that we have to shine as much as we possibly can all day, every day, as much as we want to and can and feel comfortable with. And so when people come into our lives, they can decide, is this somebody I want to have in my life or not? Like they're not really put in the situation where we pretended we're less than we actually are. And then one way or another, it comes out that we actually have all this light hidden within us. Reason number 4 why meeting an INFJ will break your ego is because the INFJ can show you that you've been caught. That you've been caught trying to pretend to be somebody that you're not. Like, it's not just the fact that you see behind the facade. It's not only that you're sort of forcing them to look into their own insecurities. It's more than that. It's the fact that the other person knows, okay, that person can see who I really am. They caught me. They saw that I'm not confident enough to be myself, so therefore I have to put on this facade. And for a lot of people, that's like an even bigger ego break because they are not going through this only on their own. They also have somebody else witnessing that. And so this in itself is even more painful. It makes it more real. It makes it more uncomfortable. But again, is this really something we have to worry about? Yes, it's something that we want to avoid at all costs because it seems like we're causing so much pain. But the reason why we're causing so much pain is because we're trying to pretend like we don't know. It's the fact that we give them the illusion that we have no idea that they're pretending. And that's when they hit them. When you, from the beginning, really talk to a person like in a way of, okay, this is how I see you. You're trying to pretend like you're doing this, but you're actually this. And this is the way I'm talking to you. And I'm not questioning it. I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not trying to be less than in order to, protect your feelings. You actually are respecting the other person more because you're saying you're strong enough, you can handle this. Like, I'm not going to make myself small. And that situation that happens when an INFJ doesn't do that, when they first pretend and then they let them know that all along in the entire friendship, in the entire time you've known each other, you actually thought of them in this particular way and you just didn't say it. That's when it really hits their ego. That's when a lot of egos get broken because they see that you've been aware of this game, of this facade all along. And this is not only hurtful, it really breaks down their ego. It feels like they cannot hide from their shame. And so it even enhances the fact that they're going through those emotions and that their ego has to be broken down because they just cannot pretend to be that character anymore because that character has been exposed. Reason number 5 why meeting an INFJ will break your ego is because the INFJ can switch up real quick. INFJs are able to be super kind. They're able to be super forgiving. They're able to have a lot of empathy and to make things easier for other people. And a lot of people actually take advantage of that. They look at you and they think, oh, INFJs are really just somebody who wants to be around me. I enhance their life. Like, there's just stuff they get from being around me. People are not aware of what you're doing for them. People are not aware of everything that you're trying to do in the background in order to make them feel good. And so the moment the INFJ really gets to a place where they recognize, I've done so much, there is no appreciation, there is no recognition, there is no respect, people actually think they can walk all over me, that's the moment the INFJ switches up. And the biggest shock for other people is how fast the INFJ can switch it up. The moment the INFJ is recognized, I will not play this game anymore. That's it. They really switch up from hot to cold like that. And the other person gets humbled really quickly. Because it's one thing to meet somebody and you feel like all along you had no power over them. They had no respect for you. Like, you would have to earn it, all of that. Like, a lot of people can handle it. Like, you just distance yourself psychologically. You have no real interaction with them. But having somebody who you feel like is below you, who you feel like will do everything for you, where you can do whatever you want and they will still be at your side, if that person switches up, they recognize that they've been living an illusion all along, that they felt like they had power in this situation when in the end they don't. And it's this fast switch up that really humbles people, that really makes their ego break down because they didn't expect it. It's this shock factor that has such a big impact on other people. And so when we know all of this, like, how are we going to go through life? Like, do we really want to play those games over and over again? Do we really have a choice? Well, in my experience, you do have a choice. And that is that you decide from now on, I'm not going to play those games at all. Like, yes, there are situations where I don't have to show all my cards. Definitely, I'm not showing everybody all my strengths. But if I allow somebody closer to me psychologically, like there's some kind of interaction here, then people have to see me for who I truly am. And that includes your strength. That includes the parts of you that are choosing you first. It's that version of you that says, I'm going to live my epic life on my terms, and it starts like this. This is where my strengths are. This is how I want to live out my life. And you can either deal with it or not. I'm not going to pretend like I'm weaker than I actually am because this might rub you the wrong way. Yes, you can read people. Yes, you have empathy for them. But that takes second place to you choosing you. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be unkind, but you have to make sure that you keep your life energy intact, that you make sure that your cup of energy is full. You have so much strength. You have so much to give. Use that power to thrive. I promise you, you will be not just better for yourself, but also better for the people around you if you use your energy in order to thrive than in order to survive. You got this. It just takes a little bit of reprogramming. And I know every single INFJ is capable of that switch once they say, now is my time. Remember, if you want assistance in this process, then join our amazing community of INFJs who are doing just that. The next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp round starts this Saturday, November 4th. So make sure to be on that waiting list to get access to the early bird prize, and definitely set a reminder to watch the free INFJ Epic Life Masterclass here on YouTube November 4th. Everything you need to know you can find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on the 5 most intimidating qualities of the INFJ.